They say marriages don't collapse in an instant. That it's not the shouting match or the final slammed door that ends things, it's the months of quiet neglect, the unanswered, "How was your day?" The cold shoulder turned into a cold life. And I can tell you, that's true. Because I didn't lose my wife in a fight. I lost her in the silence between sentences. My name's Daniel. I'm 41. I've spent the last 12 years married to someone I thought would always see me, really see me, even when the world didn't. Her name is Rachel. We met when we were just kids working our way up at the same publishing house in downtown Chicago. She was sharp, quick-witted, and ambitious as hell, the kind of woman who knew what she wanted and didn't apologize for it. I loved that about her. Still do, in some buried, stubborn part of me. Our first apartment was barely bigger than a shoebox. Rent was late more than once, and our coffee table was made out of milk crates for longer than I'd care to admit. But we were happy. Genuinely, irreversibly happy. I'd come home to the smell of burnt grilled cheese, she'd laugh when I forgot to switch the laundry, and on the nights we didn't have much, we had each other. That always felt like enough. But life, I guess, gets complicated when success starts whispering in your partner's ear. Rachel moved up fast. She was brilliant, no doubt about it. Promotions came quickly, and with them came longer hours, late-night calls, red-eye flights. I was proud of her. Proud for her. So I stepped back. Let her shine. I took care of the house, handled the bills, cooked most nights. At first, she noticed. She'd squeeze my hand and say, "I don't know what I'd do without you." But somewhere along the way, those words stopped coming. Eventually, so did her gaze. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped sitting next to me on the couch. Stopped being with me, even when we were in the same room. I started to feel like furniture. Useful. Present. Unremarkable. And I kept telling myself, this is just a phase. This happens in marriages. People grow. They change. They get busy. But the distance started to feel like a canyon. And I was always the one building the bridge. Always the one reaching across. Until one night, a moment I'll never forget, I reached out and found nothing but air. We were in bed, side by side, a gulf of emotion between us, the glow of her phone lighting her face. I was reading an old book I'd picked up again, Steinbeck, Something Comforting, and I glanced at her. She didn't look up. Not once. "I miss talking to you," I said quietly. She didn't even blink. Just thumbed something out on the screen. "We're talking now." That was the moment I realized, I wasn't losing her. I already had. It didn't come crashing down all at once. That would have been easier, in a way. But what followed was worse, a slow erosion. She stopped sleeping next to me, said she needed more space. Then came the unexplained nights away, the unexplained expenses, the permanent passcode on her phone. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just watched. And in watching, I saw the truth unfold. Not with the violence of betrayal, but the apathy of someone who no longer cared if I knew. And it was in that silence that I made my choice. I left on a Thursday. No storm, no shouting. Rachel was at work, probably in one of those endless meetings where everyone talks and no one listens, the kind she used to complain about before she started loving them more than our dinners. I packed lightly. A couple of shirts, jeans, my worn boots, the old leather journal she gave me on our 3rd anniversary. I slid it into the bag without a second thought, even if she hadn't remembered the gift in years, I had. The apartment was clean. Almost too clean. Like it had been scrubbed of the laughter that once echoed off the walls. I walked through it slowly, pausing at the kitchen counter where she used to dance barefoot while the pasta boiled. At the hallway mirror where she'd fix her lipstick and smile at me over her shoulder, a small smile that felt like a secret. That smile had been gone for months. I left a note. I didn't want to disappear like some coward. I'm not that man. I wrote. Rachel, I'm not leaving out of anger. I'm leaving because I've been gone for a while now, you just didn't notice. This isn't punishment. It's permission. For both of us to be honest with ourselves. Take care of yourself. Daniel. That was it. No dramatic final words, no accusations. Just a folded piece of truth on the edge of our dining table, beside a wine glass that had been there for days. Driving out of the city, my hands tightened on the steering wheel. I didn't know where I was going, only that it had to be far enough. I crossed into Indiana before sunset, the flat roads opening up like a long exhale. I ended up at an old lakeside motel we once stayed in years ago, back when she still reached for my hand just because it was there. The clerk barely looked up. I liked that. I needed to be invisible. That night, I sat on the motel's wooden porch, nursing a black coffee and watching the wind skate across the water. My phone buzzed once. Then twice. Then a dozen times. Rachel. I didn't read the messages. I didn't need to. I don't know when exactly I started slipping away from her. Maybe it was when she stopped asking me how my day went. Or maybe it was when I stopped expecting her to. Maybe we both just got tired, not of each other, but of carrying something alone we once built together. There was a flashback that hit me hard that night. It was the day I proposed. We were hiking in Oregon, near Mount Hood. I remember how her cheeks were pink from the cold, her eyes wide with wonder at the waterfall behind us. I dropped to one knee on a mossy rock and she gasped like it was the only sound in the world. Daniel, she whispered, you make life feel like a story I want to be in forever. I believed her. I still think she meant it, back then. But stories change. And some characters stop showing up in the next chapter. The next morning, I opened the journal. The first page still read. To Daniel, for all the thoughts you never say out loud. I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote. Day 1. I'm still trying to remember who I am without being someone's shadow. I think that's a good place to start. That was the first honest thing I'd written in years. The lakeside motel had become a strange sort of haven. The coffee was terrible, the walls thin, the air always carrying a faint scent of pine and old cigarettes, but I slept better than I had in months. Maybe because, for the first time in a long while, I wasn't bracing for disappointment. Each morning, I'd go for a walk along the shore. Cold air filling my lungs. Hands stuffed deep in my jacket pockets. Watching the birds rise and scatter like ideas not yet formed. I still hadn't told many people what happened. Not my family. Not my friends. I figured I'd explain when I had the right words, but I was still trying to find them myself. Then, on a Sunday afternoon, those words found me. It came in the form of a knock. Not the motel door. I was out on the porch again, sipping from my chipped mug, flipping through the journal Rachel had given me, now with a few more entries under my belt. The knock came from a car horn. I looked up to see an old blue Subaru pulling into the lot. At first, I didn't recognize the driver. Then the window rolled down. Holy hell, is that you, Daniel Hart? It was Maya. I blinked. Same crooked smile. Same quick, unapologetic voice. She had been my coworker years ago, back when I first met Rachel. We were editors then, the kind of friends who would sneak out for midday tacos and laugh until we cried over bad grammar in author bios. She stepped out of the car, wrapped in a green coat, curly hair tossed in the wind like it hadn't changed a bit. I heard through the grapevine you went off the grid, she said, approaching. Didn't think that meant you moved into a fisherman's shack. It's a motel, I said, standing. And I happen to like it. She gave me a long look, one that went straight through me. So, what happened? I hesitated. But something about her, the way she stood there, hands in pockets, not judging, not pitying, made it easier to speak. She stopped seeing me, I said simply. And eventually, I stopped waiting to be seen. We walked along the lake for nearly an hour. I told her about the nights Rachel came home late, the missed dinners, the ghost that had replaced the woman I married. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. But I gave her enough. Maya didn't interrupt. Didn't offer clichés. Just walked beside me, hands deep in her coat, eyes on the horizon. You know, she finally said, you always had this stillness to you. Like you didn't need to be loud to be strong. But it used to shine. Lately, it's been more like you're trying not to take up space. That hit harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how small I'd let myself become. Back at the motel, we sat on the porch as the sun dipped low. Maya pulled out 2 tiny paper cups of diner coffee from her car. It was somehow worse than the motel brew, and we laughed about it until our stomachs hurt. I'll be around for a few weeks, she said. Working remotely, visiting family. If you ever want to talk, or, eat something that didn't come from a vending machine, let me know. I nodded. I'd like that. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I felt present. That night, I added another entry to the journal. Maya said I used to shine. I want to believe that's still in me somewhere. Not because of her. But because I miss that version of myself too. Also, I need real coffee. Desperately. I didn't realize how much I had been hiding until I stopped. That week, I woke up early every morning. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd step outside the motel room, stretch beneath the gray-blue sky, and walk to the little cafe at the edge of town. The waitress learned my name by the 3rd day. Coffee, Daniel, she'd say, not even waiting for my nod. The first time I opened my laptop again, I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. Writing used to be something I did for clients, for deadlines, for Rachel's approval. Now it felt like a conversation with someone I'd forgotten, myself. Maya came by every other day. Sometimes we walked. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't say much at all, just shared a meal, or sat quietly watching geese glide across the water. There was comfort in that. One afternoon, we found ourselves sitting in her car outside the used bookstore in town. She had brought me there on a whim. You ever notice, she said, flipping through a weathered paperback, how the saddest stories are never about people who break, they're about people who bend for too long and forget how to stand. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I lived that one. She looked at me, not with sympathy, but recognition. You still love her? I thought about the question for a long time. Finally, I said. I love who she was. I don't know who she is now. And maybe, that's okay. That night, back at the motel, I found myself digging through my old email account. I hadn't checked it in months. Among the clutter were messages from Rachel, more than I expected. Some were long. Most were short. A few were apologetic. None of them angry. One subject line stopped me cold. You were always better to me than I was to you. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Instead, I closed the laptop and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Really stood there. Not just to shave or brush my teeth, but to look. I studied the man in the reflection. The creases near my eyes. The gray creeping into my beard. The quiet tiredness in my expression, but also something else. A steadiness. I hadn't seen that in years. I wrote in my journal that night. I don't hate her. And that's a strange kind of freedom. I don't want revenge. I don't want her to hurt. I just want my time back. And maybe, piece by piece, I'm taking it. I hadn't told Maya everything, not yet. Not about the moment that finally broke me. The final straw. The humiliating night I came home to find silence where love used to live. But I would. Eventually. For now, it was enough to not feel invisible. To be seen, even if just by a friend who didn't flinch at my silence, didn't need me to perform. Maya and I sat on the hood of her car overlooking the lake, the sky dipped in gold. She didn't ask for much, never pried, just let me breathe. But tonight, her voice came soft. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "What was the moment you knew? I mean, really knew it was over?" I looked down at the soda in my hands, watched the condensation drip between my fingers. She came home late. Said it was work. Didn't kiss me hello, didn't even ask about dinner. Went straight to the bedroom like I wasn't there. I paused. She changed quickly. Quietly. Like someone hiding a bruise, or maybe guilt. And when I asked her how the meeting went, she smiled. Too easily. Said it was productive. Maya watched me. No judgment. Just space. I kissed her on the forehead, told her good night, and slept on the couch. Did she notice? Maya asked. She didn't say anything, I said. Maybe that was my answer. The truth sat heavy between us. She used to be a terrible liar, I added quietly. But I guess even lies get polished over time. Maya nodded. Yeah, been there too. Her voice was low, steady. My ex didn't cheat, at least not physically. But he stopped choosing me. Day after day. That's a kind of leaving too. We sat there in silence. And it wasn't awkward. It was healing. That night, I turned my phone back on. One voicemail from Rachel. Daniel. I'm sorry. I didn't know how far I'd drifted. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just hope you find peace. I hope you find you. No begging. No blame. Just a voice from a life I'd already stepped out of. Later, I wrote in my journal. There wasn't one moment I left. There were 1,000 quiet ones. But that Thursday, when I kissed her goodnight and she didn't ask why I was walking away, that's when I knew I already had. The voicemail from Rachel didn't haunt me. It settled in like an old photograph, a memory I didn't need to tear up, but didn't need to frame either. I didn't call her back. I wasn't angry, just done. And that was new for me. Done used to mean guilt. Now it meant peace. That week, I picked up a small freelance editing job. Nothing big, just a travel blog needing rewrites. But for the first time in ages, I opened my laptop without pressure. No deadlines from Rachel's contacts. No need to prove anything. Just words. And it felt good. Maya stopped by one evening with takeout, tacos from a food truck down by the highway. You've officially eaten 3 vegetables this week, she teased, handing me a plate. Don't ruin it by calling them vegetables. We ate on the motel porch, feet propped up on the railing, the lake still and glassy under the dusk sky. So what's next for you? She asked, voice casual. I don't know, I said. And that's the strange part, I'm not panicking. She nodded. Maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just, between stories. The next day, I went into town and asked the cafe owner if they needed help. Turned out, they needed someone part-time to run deliveries and do a little bookkeeping. It wasn't glamorous. But I didn't need glamorous. I needed real. On Saturday morning, Maya invited me to a small neighborhood cookout her cousin was hosting. You don't have to talk to anyone, she said. Just come eat something grilled and unidentifiable. I hesitated. People will ask questions, I said. Let them, she replied. You don't owe anyone a polished story. Just show up as yourself. So I went. And it was weird. And good. People were kind. No one knew my history. I was just Daniel, the guy who used to live in Chicago, now doing bookkeeping and drinking too much gas station coffee. And when a little boy ran past with a half-eaten popsicle, sticky and wild, I didn't flinch. I smiled. Because I remembered a time I thought I'd never smile at anything ordinary again. That night, I stood by the lake, alone. The wind was calm, but inside, something was moving, not fast, not loud. Just real. I wrote in my journal. I'm not healed. But I'm not hiding. That feels like enough for now. I showed up today. Not for anyone else, for me. I went back. Not to stay. Not to rekindle anything. Just to finish the story the right way. It had been nearly a month since I left. Long enough for Rachel to stop calling every day. Long enough for me to realize I didn't miss her, I missed the version of us that existed in a different life. I called her the night before. I need to stop leaving things unfinished, I told her. She didn't ask questions. Just said, okay. The apartment hadn't changed. Still tidy. Still cold. Still hers. Rachel stood in the kitchen when I walked in. She wore the sweater I bought her on our 5th anniversary, the gray one she used to steal from my drawer. Funny, the little things you notice. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded. I'm not here to reopen anything. I just need to close it, properly. She looked down, bracing herself. I deserve that. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. Two people who once knew everything about each other, now struggling to know what to say. I'm not angry, I started. I was. But mostly. I was tired. She nodded, eyes wet but steady. I know. I felt it too. But I didn't want to say it out loud. Saying it meant we were over. We were over, I said gently. You just didn't want to turn the page. Rachel wiped a tear with the back of her hand. I stopped seeing you, she admitted. Not because you changed. But because I did. And I didn't know how to tell you that without losing you. You didn't lose me all at once, I said. It happened the same way I fell in love with you, slowly, then completely. There was no fight. No, how could you? No rehashing of details we both already knew. I handed her a signed separation agreement. Clean. Fair. Kind. She looked at it and nodded. I always thought you were the quiet one, she said. But I think you were just, steady. I took that for granted. I stood up. I hope you find what you're looking for, Rachel. I mean that. You too, she said. Then after a beat, you already seem like you have. Outside, the air felt different. Not colder, just clearer. I didn't drive straight back to the motel. I took a detour, a park we used to visit years ago. I sat on a bench near the pond, same as I had so many times before. Except this time, I wasn't waiting for anyone. Maya called later that night. I told her I went back. Told her it was done. Are you okay? She asked. I think I'm better than okay, I said. I feel free. She paused. Proud of you, Daniel. That was all I needed. I wrote one final entry in the journal Rachel gave me all those years ago. The man I was, he stayed too long in silence, thinking it made him strong. The man I am now understands that strength is walking away, and never needing to slam the door. This is my last page. Not because the story ends. But because the next one starts with a clean sheet.